The office of Emerald Technologies buzzed with the usual Monday energy. People typing away at computers, the soft hum of conversations, and the occasional burst of laughter from the break room. In his corner office, the company's founder and CEO leaned back in his chair, reviewing the quarterly reports. At 45, he had built this software company from nothing but an idea and sheer determination. His salt and pepper beard and kind eyes masked the sharp business mind that had turned a small startup into a company that now employed over 200 people. He prided himself on knowing every person who worked for him, not just their names, but their stories, where they came from, what drove them, what they dreamed about. This connection with his employees wasn't just good business practice, it was who he was as a person. Which is why he felt a strange twist in his stomach when he overheard something unusual while walking past the break room that afternoon. The company had hosted a lunch meeting for the sales team, and as usual, there was plenty of food left over. The CEO paused just outside the door when he heard a voice he didn't immediately recognize. "I was wondering, would it be possible to take some of the leftover sandwiches home?" The voice belonged to a woman, soft but with an edge of something that caught his attention. Anxiety? Embarrassment? He couldn't quite place it. "Well, they'll probably just get thrown out otherwise," another voice responded. That was Diane from HR. "So I don't see why not. Let me find you a container." The CEO stepped slightly to the side, glancing through the doorway. The woman speaking to Diane was tall and slender, wearing a simple blue blouse and black pants. Her hair was pulled back neatly, and though her clothes were clean and professional, they had the worn look of garments that had been washed hundreds of times. He recognized her now, one of the newer customer service representatives who had joined the company about 3 months ago. As he watched, the woman's shoulders relaxed slightly at Diane's answer. "Thank you. I really appreciate it." There was genuine relief in her voice, the kind that seemed too intense for simply scoring free leftovers. He should have continued walking. There was nothing unusual about an employee taking home extra food. It happened all the time. But something about the way she asked, the relief in her voice when Diane agreed, stuck with him as he returned to his office. Later that afternoon, he called Diane. "That new customer service rep, the one who asked about the leftovers. What's her name again?" "Oh, that's Melanie," Diane replied. "Started about 3 months ago. Fantastic with customers. Always gets top marks in the satisfaction surveys." "What's her story? Family? Background?" Diane hesitated. Not much in her file beyond the basics. Single, I believe. No emergency contacts listed except herself. Passed all her training with flying colors. Why do you ask? "Just curious. Thanks, Diane." After hanging up, he pulled up Melanie's employee file on his computer. Her resume was impressive for someone in an entry-level position, bachelor's degree in business, previous experience in retail management. So why was she working in customer service? And why did she seem so desperate for leftover sandwiches? Over the next few days, he found himself paying more attention to Melanie. She was always the first to arrive in the morning, often before 7:30 a.m., though her shift didn't officially start until 8 o'clock. She was meticulous in her work, handling even the most difficult customers with patience and charm. During lunch breaks, while others gathered in the break room or went out to nearby restaurants, Melanie stayed at her desk, eating small portions of food she brought from home, usually just a small container of rice or a half sandwich. Most tellingly, she was always among the last to leave. One evening, as he was working late himself, he noticed her still at her desk at 6:30 p.m., though her shift ended at 5 o'clock. When she finally did pack up to leave, there was none of the relaxed demeanor of someone heading home to rest. Instead, she moved with purpose, with the energy of someone who still had places to be. Something didn't add up, and he couldn't shake the feeling that beneath Melanie's professional exterior, there was a story that needed to be told. The CEO couldn't get Melanie off his mind. There was something about her situation that bothered him. Not in a bad way, more like a puzzle he couldn't solve. One rainy Tuesday morning, he arrived at the office earlier than usual, around 7:15. He wasn't surprised to see the lights already on in the customer service area. Melanie sat at her desk, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she answered overnight customer emails. She didn't notice him watching from the hallway. A half-eaten apple and a small container of what looked like oatmeal sat beside her computer. She paused her typing to take a small, careful bite of the apple, chewing slowly as if to make it last. The CEO ducked into the break room before she could spot him. He made himself a cup of coffee and pondered what he'd seen. Most of his employees treated the early morning hours as a necessary evil, dragging themselves in with coffee cups and sleepy expressions. Melanie worked with the focus of someone who couldn't afford to waste a single minute. Over the next week, he made a point to walk by the customer service area more often. He noticed small things. The way Melanie's clothes, while always clean and pressed, rotated between the same 5 outfits. How she never joined in when coworkers collected money for lunch deliveries. The careful way she packed up leftovers from company events, never taking too much but clearly grateful for what she could get. "How's the new hire working out?" he asked Diane from HR during their weekly meeting. "Melanie? She's incredible. Always volunteers for extra shifts. Takes on the toughest customers without complaint. I wish we had 10 more like her." Has she mentioned anything about her personal situation? Family needs, financial concerns? Diane shook her head. Very private person. Keeps conversation professional. Though, she hesitated. "What is it?" "Well, she did ask if we allow employees to sell back unused vacation days. Said she prefers working to taking time off. I told her our policy doesn't allow it." She seemed disappointed. That evening, the CEO stayed late, catching up on emails. At 6:45, he noticed Melanie finally shutting down her computer. He watched through his office window as she pulled a wrinkled uniform from her bag and headed to the bathroom. When she emerged 10 minutes later, she wore the red and yellow colors of a popular gas station chain. His suspicion was confirmed. She was working a second job. Curiosity got the better of him. He pulled up her employment application on his computer. Under previous employment, she'd listed management experience at a department store in another state. Her references had checked out. Her salary at Emerald Technologies was standard for her position, not generous, but not minimum wage either. So why the need for a second job? He scrolled further down the application. Under additional information, most employees left this section blank or wrote something generic about being a team player. Melanie had written reliable transportation, willing to work any hours, no restrictions on availability. It was the application of someone desperate for work. The next day, he asked his administrative assistant to pull Melanie's performance reports. Every metric was above average. Customer satisfaction scores, resolution times, attendance, all exceptional. Her direct supervisor had written, "Picks up new systems quickly, never complains, requests additional training and responsibilities." During lunch, he casually walked by her desk. While other stations were personalized with photos of family, funny desk toys, or plants, Melanie's space was bare except for work materials. The only personal item was a small, worn photo tucked into the corner of her computer monitor. From his angle, he could just make out what looked like 3 young children. That afternoon, he called the payroll department. "Can you tell me if employee Melanie Williams has set up direct deposit?" "Let me check." "No, sir. She's one of the few who still picks up a physical check every 2 weeks." "And does she contribute to the company $401? "No contributions. She opted out during enrollment." He thanked them and hung up, the picture becoming clearer. An employee working extra hours, taking a second job, opting out of retirement benefits, and carefully guarding leftovers wasn't just being frugal. She was struggling. But there was still something missing. Why was someone with her qualifications and work ethic in such a difficult position? He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Melanie's story. And for some reason he couldn't fully explain, he felt compelled to find out what it was. The CEO sat in his car in the company parking lot, gripping the steering wheel tight. It was nearly 7 in the evening, and he'd been debating with himself for the last 15 minutes. Was he really going to do this? Follow an employee after work? He'd never done anything like this before. It felt wrong on some level, invasive, maybe even inappropriate. But the worry gnawing at him wouldn't go away. Something wasn't right with Melanie's situation, and for reasons he couldn't fully explain, he felt responsible for finding out what it was. "Just to make sure she's okay," he muttered to himself. "That's all." The side door of the building opened and Melanie stepped out, still in her gas station uniform. Her shoulders slumped with exhaustion, but her steps were quick as she headed toward the bus stop at the corner. The CEO waited until she was halfway there before starting his car. He'd keep his distance, just observe. Then go home and forget this whole idea. He pulled out of the parking lot slowly, careful to stay several car lengths behind her. When she reached the bus stop, she checked her watch and then pulled out her phone. Her face lit up with a smile as she spoke, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. Whoever was on the other end of that call brought her joy, a brief moment of lightness in what seemed like a very heavy life. The bus arrived 5 minutes later. He watched her board, then pulled out into traffic, following at a careful distance. The route wound through the busier parts of downtown before heading to the west side of the city. After about 20 minutes, Melanie got off near a gas station with the same colors as her uniform. The CEO parked in a coffee shop lot across the street. He felt ridiculous now, sitting in his luxury car, watching his employee through the gas station windows as she took her place behind the counter. This was crossing a line. He should go home, forget this whole thing, and find some normal way to help her if she needed it. A performance bonus. A promotion. Something that didn't involve skulking around like some kind of spy. But as he reached to turn the key in the ignition, his phone rang. It was his wife. "Hey, are you still at the office?" she asked. "No, He paused, suddenly embarrassed to explain where he actually was. "I'm running an errand. What's up?" "Just checking when you'll be home for dinner." He looked at his watch. "About an hour, I think. I'll call you when I'm on my way." After hanging up, he sat there feeling foolish. What was he doing? This wasn't like him at all. He was about to leave when he noticed Melanie dealing with a difficult customer. A man was shouting, pointing at something behind the counter. Even from across the street, the CEO could see Melanie's professional demeanor, the same patient smile she used with angry callers at the office. The man eventually stormed out, and Melanie's shoulders dropped the moment he was gone. 4 hours. That's how long she stood behind that counter after a full day at Emerald Technologies. From 8 in the morning until midnight, she was on her feet working. 16 hours with just a brief break to travel between jobs. When her shift finally ended, the CEO had been sitting in his car for so long that his back ached and his coffee had gone cold hours ago. He watched as another employee arrived to take over, and Melanie emerged from the store, looking even more exhausted than before. She walked back to the bus stop and checked a schedule posted there. Her face fell. She'd missed the last bus. Without thinking, the CEO started his car, ready to offer her a ride. But then he stopped himself. How would he explain his presence here? Instead, he watched as she started walking down the street, her pace determined despite her obvious fatigue. He followed at a distance, keeping his headlights dim. The neighborhood gradually changed around them. Office buildings gave way to apartment complexes, which gave way to smaller, older homes. The streets became narrower, the lighting worse. After about 20 minutes of walking, Melanie turned onto a residential street lined with small houses. Some were well kept, with neat gardens and fresh paint. Others showed signs of neglect, sagging porches, overgrown yards. Melanie headed toward one of the smaller houses near the end of the street. The CEO parked a few houses away and watched as she climbed the steps to a porch where a single dim light glowed through a curtained window. This was it. This was where she lived. Something told him he was about to discover why Melanie Williams worked so hard and asked for leftover food from company lunches. The CEO slumped down in his seat as Melanie glanced back over her shoulder. For a moment, he thought she had spotted him, but her eyes passed over his car without recognition. She was just checking the empty street, a habit born from walking alone late at night. From his parked car, he could see more details of the small house. The porch light flickered, threatening to give out completely. A wooden step stacked in the middle, and patches of paint peeled from the doorframe. Yet there were touches of care. A small pot with flowers beside the door, and curtains that, while faded, were hung with precision. This wasn't what he had expected. Melanie's work ethic and professionalism had led him to imagine something different. Not luxury, certainly, but not this level of struggle either. As Melanie approached the door, it opened before she could reach for her keys. An older woman stood in the doorway, her silhouette framed by the warm light from inside. Her hair was grey and pulled back in a simple bun, and even from a distance, the CEO could see the relief on her face at Melanie's return. They exchanged words he couldn't hear, and the older woman stepped back to let Melanie enter. Before the door closed, he caught a glimpse of a small living room. Simple furniture, worn but clean. The walls needed paint, but children's drawings were taped up with care, adding color to the faded surroundings. The CEO sat in his car, the engine off, streetlights casting shadows across his face. What was he doing here? This felt invasive, wrong somehow, yet something kept him from driving away. He needed to understand. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. He was about to leave when the front door opened again, and Melanie stepped out onto the porch. She had changed out of her uniform into a simple t-shirt and sweatpants. Her hair was down now, and she looked younger, more vulnerable. She sat on the top step of the porch, pulled out her phone, and began typing. Even from a distance, he could see the exhaustion in her posture. 16 hours of work, and here she was, still awake, still doing something that clearly couldn't wait until morning. His phone buzzed in the cup holder. A text from his wife. "Everything okay? Dinner's getting cold." He texted back quickly. "Sorry. On my way now." But he didn't start the car. Not yet. Melanie finished whatever she was doing on her phone and stood up, stretching her back. As she turned to go inside, the front door opened again. This time, a small figure darted out, a child, maybe 6 or 7 years old, in pajamas. The child threw their arms around Melanie's waist. Even in the dim light, the CEO could see Melanie's face transform. The exhaustion melted away, replaced by a smile that reached her eyes. She knelt down to the child's level, saying something that made the little one laugh. Then another child appeared at the door, older, perhaps 10 or 11. This one moved with caution, hanging back until Melanie extended her arm in invitation. The older child stepped forward then, joining the embrace. The CEO felt a lump in his throat. Melanie wasn't just working to support herself. She had children, and based on the older woman he'd seen, possibly a parent or relative living with them too. As he watched this tender family moment, a third child appeared in the doorway. A teenager, by the looks of it, arms crossed, trying to appear too cool for family hugs, but clearly happy to see Melanie home. With a beckoning gesture, Melanie pulled the reluctant teen into the group embrace. 4 people, 1 small house. 2 jobs with barely enough hours in between for sleep. The pieces were finally coming together. Melanie's desperation for work, her careful saving of food, her reluctance to take time off, it wasn't just about her. It was about those 3 children and the older one. It was about keeping a roof over their heads and food on their table. The CEO started his car but didn't drive away immediately. He sat watching the family retreat back into the house, the door closing behind them, the porch lights still flickering in the night. Tomorrow, he decided, tomorrow he would find a way to help without revealing what he now knew. Because what he had seen wasn't just poverty or struggle, he had seen love, sacrifice, and a kind of strength he could only admire. The CEO barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Melanie's tired face lighting up when her children ran to her. He saw the sagging porch, the flickering light, the children's drawings carefully taped to faded walls. He saw someone working 16 hours a day and still struggling to make ends meet. Around 3 a.m., he gave up on sleep and went to his home office. His wife found him there at sunrise, staring at his laptop. "You never came to bed," she said, placing a cup of coffee beside him. "What's keeping you up?" He rubbed his eyes. "Remember when we first started the company? How we lived in that tiny apartment and counted every penny?" She nodded, sitting across from him. "We ate ramen for dinner 3 nights a week. But we had a safety net. My parents helped with the rent sometimes. Your brother loaned us money for the first office space." He looked up at her. "What if we hadn't had that? What if we'd had 3 kids to feed too?" His wife studied his face. "This is about an employee, isn't it? The one you mentioned last week?" He told her everything then, about following Melanie, about what he'd seen. Instead of judging him for overstepping boundaries, his wife listened with growing concern. "So what are you going to do?" she asked when he finished. "I've been thinking about that all night." The next morning, the CEO arrived at the office earlier than usual. He wasn't surprised to find Melanie already at her desk answering emails. Her eyes had dark circles beneath them, but her posture was straight, her focus unwavering. He spent the morning in meetings, but his mind kept drifting to Melanie and her family. Around lunchtime, he asked his assistant to compile some information. By mid-afternoon, he had made a decision. "Could you ask Melanie to come to my office at the end of her shift?" he asked his assistant. When Melanie arrived at his office door at 5 o'clock, her expression was worried. It wasn't common for entry-level employees to be called to the CEO's office. "You wanted to see me, sir?" Her voice was steady despite her obvious concern. "Yes, please come in and sit down." He gestured to the chair across from his desk. "How are you finding your role here so far?" She sat with perfect posture, hands folded in her lap. "I'm enjoying it very much, sir. The company is wonderful to work for. Your supervisor speaks very highly of you. Your performance metrics are excellent." "Thank you." Her relief was visible, but she still looked wary, as if waiting for the other shoe to drop. "I notice you often work beyond your scheduled hours. You're first in, last out most days." Something flickered across her face, worry perhaps that she had somehow broken a rule. "I just want to make sure all the customer queries are answered properly." "Your dedication is impressive." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "But I wonder if you're stretching yourself too thin." Her back stiffened. "I can handle the workload, sir. If there have been any complaints." "No complaints at all," he assured her. "Quite the opposite. I'm concerned about you, not your work performance." Confusion crossed her face. "I don't understand." The CEO took a deep breath. This was the moment where he had to be careful. He couldn't reveal that he'd followed her, seen her home, watched her with her family. It would feel like a violation. "Our HR team does regular reviews of employee work patterns. We've noticed you never take breaks, you're putting in significant overtime, and you've never taken a sick day or vacation day. Research shows that leads to burnout, even for the most capable employees." She didn't relax. "I enjoy keeping busy." "I understand that." He leaned forward slightly. "Melanie, I hope this isn't overstepping, but is everything okay?" "Outside of work, I mean." Her expression closed off immediately. "Everything's fine, thank you for asking." He could see the wall going up. She wasn't going to share her struggles with someone she barely knew, especially her boss. And why should she? In her position, revealing financial hardship might seem like a risk. "I'm glad to hear that," he said gently. "The reason I asked you here today is actually about an opportunity. We've been reviewing our customer service department structure, and we need a team lead. Someone with strong skills who can train others and handle escalated cases." Her eyes widened slightly. "A promotion?" "Yes, with a significant salary increase and full benefits. Based on your performance, you're the ideal candidate." He slid a folder across the desk. "All the details are in here. The position would start immediately if you're interested." Melanie's hands trembled slightly as she took the folder. I don't know what to say." "You've earned it," he said simply. "Your work speaks for itself." Melanie stared at the folder in her hands, her expression shifting between disbelief and caution. The CEO had seen that look before, the wariness of someone who'd learned that good news often came with hidden costs. "May I ask why me?" she finally said, her voice quiet. "There must be people here with more experience." The CEO leaned back in his chair. "Experience isn't everything. You have exceptional customer service skills, attention to detail, and you're a natural problem solver. The team respects you already," he smiled. "Plus, you clearly care about doing things right." She opened the folder and scanned the first page. When she saw the salary figure, her eyes widened slightly before she quickly composed her face. It was nearly double what she currently made. "This is very generous," she said carefully. "It's the standard rate for the position. Your performance metrics more than qualify you." He paused. "There's also a signing bonus. Company policy for internal promotions." Her fingers traced over the numbers on the page. "When would you need an answer?" "Take a few days if you need to think about it. The role does involve some additional hours for training, but," he emphasized this part, "we're strict about work-life balance for management positions. No more than 45 hours a week." Something flashed across her face. Worry? Relief? She closed the folder. "Can I let you know tomorrow?" I'd like to review the details. Of course. He stood, signaling the end of the meeting. And Melanie? My door is always open if you need anything. She nodded and left his office, walking with the careful posture of someone carrying something fragile. The next morning, the CEO arrived to find Melanie already waiting outside his office. She looked like she hadn't slept much, but there was a new resolve in her eyes. "Good morning," he said. "Would you like to come in?" Once they were seated, Melanie placed the folder on his desk. "I'm very grateful for this opportunity. Truly. But before I accept, I need to be honest about something." The CEO felt a twist of anxiety. Had she somehow figured out he'd followed her? "I have 3 children and my mother living with me," she said. "Mom had a stroke last year. She can't work anymore, and she needs care. That's why I moved here. My previous job didn't pay enough for the 5 of us." The CEO kept his expression neutral, as if this was all new information. "I see. I've been working a second job at the gas station on Westfield Avenue, night shifts." She straightened her shoulders. "If I take this promotion, I need to give that up to focus here. But I'm worried about the transition period. The bills don't stop just because I'm changing jobs." Her honesty surprised him. This clearly wasn't easy for her. "Thank you for telling me this," he said. "Your family responsibilities won't affect the offer. In fact," he opened his desk drawer and pulled out a second folder. "I was going to share this with you today. It's our company's emergency assistance program." He hadn't been planning any such thing until last night, but she didn't need to know that. "We offer signing bonuses in 2 installments for management positions. Half upon accepting the role, half after 30 days. But given your situation, we can provide the full amount upfront." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Why would you do that?" The CEO chose his words carefully. "Because it makes good business sense to set new leaders up for success. If you're worrying about keeping the lights on, you can't focus on learning your new role." She studied his face, searching for the catch. Finding none, her shoulders relaxed slightly. "I don't want special treatment." "It's not special treatment. It's a company program available to any employee facing financial hardship." This was true as of 7 a.m. this morning, when he'd emailed the policy change to HR. "Your situation qualifies. That's all." Melanie was quiet for a long moment. "When I first moved here with the kids and Mom, I promised them things would get better. That all the sacrifices would be worth it." Her voice wavered slightly. "Do you have any idea what it's like to tuck your children into bed and then leave for a night shift? To miss school concerts and parent meetings because you can't afford to take time off?" The emotion in her voice hit him like a physical force. "No," he said honestly. "I can't imagine how difficult that must be." She took a deep breath, composing herself. "If I accept this position and this assistance, I could quit the gas station job. I could actually be home at night." "That's the idea," he said gently. Her eyes, which had been carefully guarding her emotions since they first met, suddenly filled with tears. She blinked them back quickly, but not before he saw the immense weight she had been carrying. "I accept," she said, her voice steady despite the emotion behind it. "Thank you for this opportunity. I won't let you down." 6 months passed quickly. Spring turned to summer, and the company thrived under a new atmosphere that had taken root after the CEO's experience with Melanie. On a warm Friday afternoon, the CEO walked through the customer service department. The space had been transformed, not just physically, with the new open layout and comfortable break areas, but in spirit. Laughter mingled with the sound of phone calls and typing. People moved with purpose but without the frantic energy of overwork. In the center of it all stood Melanie, now a respected team leader. She was showing a new hire how to handle a difficult customer situation, her patience and expertise evident in her gestures. Her appearance had changed too, not dramatically, but in small ways that spoke volumes. The dark circles under her eyes were gone. Her clothes, while still simple, fit better and showed care in their selection. Most noticeably, she wore her hair down more often, and it framed a face that smiled easily now. When she noticed the CEO, she excused herself from the trainee and walked over. "Perfect timing," she said. "I was just about to email you the monthly customer satisfaction report. We're up 12% from last quarter." "Impressive," he said, genuinely pleased. "Your team is doing excellent work. We have a good foundation to build on." Her confidence had grown along with her role. Where once she had been hesitant to speak in meetings, she now led discussions and offered valuable insights. "Do you have a minute to chat in the break room?" he asked. Once they were seated with coffee, the CEO placed a small envelope on the table. "It's been exactly 6 months since your promotion. The board asked me to give you this." Melanie opened the envelope and pulled out a card. Her eyes widened as a check slipped out. "This is a performance bonus," she said, surprised. "I wasn't expecting this. You've transformed your department. Reduced turnover, improved customer ratings, implemented training programs that other departments are now copying." He smiled. "The bonus is well deserved." She studied his face, then carefully folded the check back into the card. "I have something to share with you too." From her bag, she pulled out a photograph and handed it to him. It showed a small house with fresh paint, new front steps, and flower beds bursting with color. 3 children and an older woman stood on the porch, all smiling broadly. "We moved last month," she explained. "Nothing fancy, but it's in a better school district for the kids. Mom has her own room now, with space for her physical therapy equipment." The CEO looked at the photo, warmth spreading through his chest. "Your family looks happy." "They are." Her voice softened. "My oldest is talking about college now. Before, he wouldn't even mention it because he knew we couldn't afford it." She took a deep breath. "My middle one joined the school band. And my little one, she's sleeping through the night for the first time in years. I think she was always afraid I wouldn't be there when she woke up." The CEO nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. "You changed our lives," Melanie said simply, "not just with the promotion or the money, but by seeing me, by understanding that employees have whole lives outside these walls." The CEO thought about the night he had followed her home, how uncomfortable he had felt, how unsure of his motives. Yet somehow, that boundary-crossing moment had led to something good, not just for Melanie, but for the entire company. In the months since Melanie's promotion, he had worked with HR to review all employee salaries, ensuring they reflected true living wages. They had implemented flexible scheduling for parents and caregivers. They had started an emergency fund for employees facing unexpected hardships. They had even partnered with a local daycare to provide subsidized childcare. "Actually," he said, finding his voice again, "you changed things around here. You helped me see what I was missing." Melanie smiled, a full, genuine smile that reached her eyes. "My mom always says that sometimes the worst moments lead to the best changes. I think she's right." As they walked back to the main office area, the CEO noticed the wall by the entrance. It now held a large framed statement, the company's new core values. At the top of the list, "We see people, not just employees." Sometimes it took following someone home in the dark to truly see them in the light.